I mean, walking out of a casino in SWAT gear with $160 million in duffel bags, we know it's a crime, but that is just the tip of the iceberg of the fun legal things that are going on in Ocean's 11.
Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Doug Defense, the show where a real lawyer talks about fake things. I am Billy Business. And of course, you all know my grease man, Doug Ridley.
Oh, I wish I knew like half of the cool stuff they say. I think that's what makes it so fun. But yes, I am here.
So you can
And
look up online.
I by the way,
yeah,
I'm in.
you're there in or you're out, right?
Yeah, I'm
so
in.
you can look up online, and people have kind of deduced what a lot of the okay, first of all, hold on, pause. Let's not have a conversation with ourselves. We are talking 2001's Ocean's 11.
Yes.
Now, there's a scene in Ocean's 11 at the beginning where we're laying out this big heist, and Brad Pitt's like, you need an Ella Fitzgerald, this, that.
Yeah.
Go on IMDb and go to the trivia because someone actually went through and figured out what all of this means and how it relates to the movie. Like Ella Fitzgerald was the Memorex. Is it real? Is it fake or whatever ad that they used to run for Memorex, meaning the tape, meaning how they put the tape in the vault so that think they're watching.
The Ella Fitzgerald was the tape of the heist?
Yes.
Whoa.
So there's all
right,
those,
cool.
yeah, all these things actually mean something, which again, talking about Ocean's 11 makes this so cool because it's maybe the coolest movie that ever existed.
Yeah, I mean, short of some of the Rat Pack stuff, which is what it was, I'm not gonna lie to after.
You. I tried to watch the Rat Pack one after this one. It's really boring. It is really this is like one of the few examples of a remake that way outdoes the original.
Well, yeah. And I mean, this group of people, I mean, George Clooney gathering these people just like he did for the heist for this movie. I mean, it's just that was unprecedented.
Let's run down this cast in case you've forgotten. This is 2001, so we're talking late 90s, early 2000s. We've got George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts, Matt Damon, Andy Garcia, Bernie Mac, Don Cheadle, Carl Reiner, Elliot Gould, Scott Conn, who maybe now you'd be like, who? But at that time, he was they were pushing him with that Ashton Kutcher kind of class of people. Casey Affleck. This cast was an Avengers movie before an Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Like you look at it and how did they get all these people in one movie?
And what I had heard at the time was that it was all about George Clooney doing exactly what he did in the film, but to those actors. Like, hey, I have this really cool idea. It's not going to work if you charge your regular fee. Let's all get together and make this really cool movie.
Let's go hang out in Vegas
and be ultra cool on a heist movie, and it worked.
I will say this is probably top 5 most rewatchable movies that exist. You can throw this on anytime, any mood you're in, and you will just get sucked right back in. There's an aura to this movie that I don't know how to describe.
Yeah. Well, and Steven Soderbergh, I mean, kudos to him because he makes movies like nobody else does. And I'm remembering the scene where they're talking about whether they need one more guy. They got 10 and they need one more guy.
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt's just sitting there. He says nothing. And his face is even covered. He just says nothing.
We need one more?
We need one more?
We need one more.
We need one more? Okay.
Yeah, we'll get one more.
I mean, no, I just imagine, these days, okay, so we're going to have George Clooney and Brad Pitt in a scene. We're going to hide half of Brad Pitt's face and he's not going to say a word. Like, it just.
And yet it just totally works.
Works.
For this movie. There's so many of these moments. And I also think we talked about this back in the Back to the Future episode where there's never a wasted moment.
Yeah.
Everything in the first 2 acts, before you get to that third act where we finally get to see the heist payoff, this rewards rewatchability because you go back and you're like, every single detail is deliberate. They're not making this vault to practice. They're making it for this reason. The air freshener in the car.
I was just going to say the air freshener because I had forgotten about the air freshener. I was like, that's a weird close-up. That must have... And my wife just looked at me and grinned because she remembered what the air fresheners in the SWAT van. But yeah.
I watched this movie and I think like, how did the screenwriter or screenwriters keep track of all of this stuff? That must have been...
Well, and then the other thing that I was thinking, rewatching it, and looking at the IMDb cast listing on it, they actually credit Wayne Newton, and they credit like all the people that are in the background for the big fight at the end are credited in the movie. And I just think about the filming of that. I mean, I think it was real. And so, they were just like, let's throw a fight, but we're also going to film Ocean's 11 at the beginning of the fight.
Just absolutely crazy. If you've not watched this in a long time, throw it on, because I think, like, first of all, it's a mood elevator.
Yeah.
if nothing else.
For sure.
Amazing score. That's also just like, I don't know how to define the genre, but it's just cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is cool. But we are a legal show.
Yes. Not a music review show.
Not a music review show. Not a movie review show. As much as I love to gush about this franchise, really, this entire franchise, we're a legal show. And I know exactly what you're thinking at home. Heists are illegal. End of show.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah. Dun, 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 and we just did like the outro.
No. Okay, so obviously, we know stealing money, crime.
Yeah, stealing money is bad. We advise you, don't steal money. That's my legal advice.
But let's get into a little bit more detail.
Let's have a little bit more conversation about this.
A little bit. Actually, you know what I would love? A little less conversation, a little more action,
please.
So I want to talk to you because there was one scene that stuck out to me, because now you've kind of ruined movies for me, because now I watch movies looking for legal angles instead of just enjoying the story. And one story beat that kind of stood out to me, like if I'm watching this as a prosecutor, because we always love to put this kind of assumption on our show that if we're watching the movie is some sort of footage that was a Ring camera that we just got to see everything, right?
Yeah.
If I'm a prosecutor and I'm looking, the big scene that stood out to me this time was once we've gone through the journey of finding all of our different specialty criminals, we get them all at Ruben's house. And this is where we get the big exposition dump of here, Danny and Rusty are laying out with a PowerPoint how we're going to steal $160 million.
Right.
Hilariously, for them and for the audience, it's just, they're basically saying, like, here's all the obstacles. We can't get through any of them. And here's what, so that's the plan, just so you know.
Yeah.
And there's like,
the plan is it's impossible, and we're going to do it.
Yes. Which is, it's great. It makes for great comedy. It really hooks in the audience to be like, how are you going to do this? But at that point, let's talk about conspiracy. Now, we've brought that word up before in the show, especially as it kind of concerns, like, well, if these three people knew about it, but this guy did it and everything. But I really want to talk about, before they ever step foot into Terry Benedict's casinos, how much trouble are we talking about just having that meeting?
Yeah. The start of the meeting starts the criminal conspiracy, because it's, first of all, Ruben says...
Actually, let me pause you just for a second, just to catch our audience up. If you haven't seen it for a while, Danny Ocean, which is George Clooney's character, went to jail for stealing something we don't know. He gets out on parole, and the first thing he does, he realizes his wife or ex-wife is now dating a casino owner, Terry Benedict. We don't find that out till a little bit. But he goes and he finds Brad Pitt, Rusty, and he says, I want to knock over 3 casinos in Vegas. because all three casinos all tie in to the same vault.
Mirage, MGM, Bellagio.
Yes. So that's $160 million because they're going to do it on the weekend where there's a boxing fight, big event. They go to all these different people. They all have specialties. Don Cheadle does, explosions and tech. And so everyone kind of has their part to play in this bigger thing. Ruben being Elliot Gould, he's the one that he already has a bunch of money. So he bankrolls a lot of, you got to spend money to steal money, right?
Apparently.
So anyways, that to get you up to speed, the whole movie is basically like the first two acts are, here's the plan. We're going to steal all this money from Terry Benedict, who, of course, is a jerk. Danny's ulterior motive is, I'm going to steal the money, but I'm going to show Tess, my wife, that she's with the wrong guy, that he doesn't care about her like I do. And then the whole third act is really, we as an audience get to find out in such a fun way how this meticulous plan was pulled off and how they were able to walk out of the casino with $160 million.
Yeah.
So in this scene, this is where he's laying it out to the other characters. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah. And I think that the start of a criminal conspiracy is the intention for people to get together and do a crime. So just on its basic level. Danny does this amazing speech, welcome, we've got good food and whatever. If you are not in, no problem, no hard feelings, go home. If have as much food as you want. If you're in, come on inside and let's have the conversation. So when he says, come on in, let's have the conversation about this crime that we're going to do, that really is the start of the criminal conspiracy. And an element of criminal conspiracy is having overt acts, ACTS, that further the conspiracy. And this is the best movie for that example, right? Because every single one of the bits of the plan that they put together is an additional act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Now, I've seen complaints. I saw them when I was a prosecutor. I've seen them as a defense attorney. And the way that they charge is they say conspiracy. Then here are the overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. So if you can imagine for a second in Ocean's 11, the first one is a bunch of guys getting together at Ruben's house by the pool, walking inside the house. And if you break it down into each one of those things, you only have to establish a few of those acts really beyond a reasonable doubt in order to loop everybody in. And that's the other thing. Everybody's good for the conspiracy at that point.
Right.
Now, the one thing that I will say that at the start of this conspiracy that I find interesting is everybody gets up except for Linus, Matt Damon's character, right? And Elliot Gould, Ruben comes over and says, "Oh, get your ass in the house." So, I mean, if I'm only defending Linus, maybe he's not as in, but of course he's all in as soon as he gets an opportunity to prove himself.
If you had to, could you argue like, well, he felt threatened?
Right, of course.
By Elliot Gould.
Being threatened by Elliot Gould is probably not the strongest defense in the world. But
I've used it to get out of a lot of things.
Wow.
Like, Elliot Gould made me feel like I had to do it.
Well,
Why were you speeding? Elliot Gould. He's right on my tail.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I thought about, though, is for the most part, as far as we know, everyone's going into that meeting. Maybe they have a criminal history, but at the moment, they're all clear, except for Basher. Basher, technically, at that point, is a fugitive because Rusty impersonated an officer to get him out of a robbery situation. So on top of conspiracy, could you get them all for harboring a fugitive?
Oh, for sure. Okay. Yeah. And Rusty for facilitating an escape. And, that whole scene was really fun and really cool and so illegal.
That pretty much defines this entire movie.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Okay, so I guess the other question I had, and I didn't really know about this until The Dark Knight, which I actually thought The Dark Knight, I was like, did they make that up or is that a real thing? Dark Knight brings up this idea of RICO, which is charging all of the, was it Maroney's guys to try to get them all. What's the difference between like RICO and conspiracy? I don't understand the correlation, or is there one?
So they're connected and very similar. RICO is designed to target the criminal enterprise itself. So that's why you have them targeting the Maroney families in The Dark Knight. This case, I guess there's an argument that the 11 are an enterprise, but not in the same way that RICO was designed for. RICO is designed more for an ongoing criminal enterprise and trying to break down that ongoing criminal enterprise and then using similar conspiracy laws. So it's very similar from that standpoint. But the whole purpose behind it is to take down an enterprise. While maybe by 13, maybe we're dealing with something close to that, but it's not like these guys are running protection rackets or things along those lines.
No, this feels more in line with like Reservoir Dogs, where it's like freelance almost.
Yeah.
I agree. By 13, they're a well-oiled machine, but
for sure.
This one, it sounds like a lot of them haven't even met each other, and. What's the little
Yin?
Yeah, I
Yin.
mean, this is his first dip into crime, as far as we know.
And when he bashes his hand, like, I could just feel it. I could feel it.
Okay, so this is also kind of interesting because it's not 11 guys who are knocking off a 7-Eleven. They're not knocking off a bank.
Right.
They're knocking off casinos.
Right.
And I feel like casinos have so many extra regulations and everything on top of it. So, one of the first things that they do is they kind of impersonate or infiltrate different casino employees. I'm going to guess that's real bad.
Yeah, it is. But a lot of it falls more under corporate espionage than it does something else. Like, for example, our tech guy, right? Who who goes in to tap into the surveillance system. Now, if all this was Livingston wanting to tap into the surveillance system and nothing else, I mean, really, all that is trespassing. It's not much more than that, or potentially invasion of privacy. Now obviously it's part of the bigger crime and the bigger conspiracy. But that's him impersonating a tech guy. It isn't the worst in the world. Now Matt Damon impersonating the gambling commission. Now we're talking about something much
well,
worse.
I was going to say, I mean, Frank has Bernie Mac. Has, he gets
Ramon.
Frank Catton can't get past the board. But he gets embedded into the staff. He's a dealer. So he's got, casino dealers who end up being caught cheating. I'm going to guess, I know you don't know Nevada gaming law off the top of your head, but I'm going to guess that's pretty bad.
It's super bad.
Yeah.
But they actually show that within that scene, and that scene was pretty true to life as far as Ramon pretending to be Ramon and getting the job in Atlantic City and then getting the transfer to Vegas and all of that under an assumed name, under a fake name and a fake background. And he would have got away with it too if it wasn't for those darn kids. But I mean, he definitely seems like he has successfully gotten into being Ramon and got the job and got all that done. So his infiltration was more, just his employee transfer from one branch to the other.
But if you had a client as a defender and, they're like, hey, this guy created a fake identity, embedded himself into a casino, and potentially as a dealer was, embezzling from the casino, I guess, is maybe the best way to, like...
If he was embezzling from the casino, then yeah, he's busted for embezzlement.
Is that what they would call it, embezzlement? Or
you know what? I'm trying to think of what he did other than be eyes in the casino.
He didn't in this one.
Right.
When we're talking Ocean's 13, which I think would warrant its own episode of our show, honestly, but in this one, you're right. All he did was basically falsify his identity because we don't know as an audience. He says at the beginning, I go by Ramon essentially because my real name, it's banned. So
Right.
we don't know what he did before, but we can assume it was something that the casinos were like, you can't be in here.
Yeah, well, and it certainly appeared that it was some sort of criminal activity in his background that would disqualify him from being a dealer.
Right.
But in this movie specifically, we have him taking careful notes of other employees. Trying to he knows that this guy is lonely, but the other two are solid, and so he might be the weak link to try to get the pass. And so I mean, he's a spy. More than anything, I think.
But that's if the bigger scope, right?
Right.
If you're just looking at Frank in a vacuum,
right.
all he is a guy who lied about his name so he could get a job.
Exactly.
And
And
that's
that's it.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Right.
And so all you know is what Linus knows.
Right.
So that's why that scene to me is one of the truer scenes. It gives you a window not only into Frank and his alias Ramon, but into what the Gaming Commission would be concerned about. And I mean, honestly, I kind of thought Terry was fairly nice about it. All things being considered, I mean, this is a guy who goes after your. We have the whole movie of him. He goes after your family. He destroys your livelihood. He destroys
Right.
the livelihood of everyone you know. This guy lied to get a job, and he's like, I better not see you in my casino again.
I mean, that's where when you watch Ocean's 13, a very similar thing happens where they purposefully set it up so Livingston Dell is the one that gets escorted away, and Willie Bank, who's Al Pacino, is the owner of that casino. That definitely is. He's like, you think this is over? Like, I'm not going to let them just arrest you. Like, I'm going to destroy you.
Yeah.
Speaking on that, let's talk about Bruiser, and just the idea of casino justice.
Casino justice.
One of my favorite scenes, one of my favorite movies is Casino with Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro. And there's that infamous scene where, and granted, this takes place in the 60s or 70s, mob-controlled Vegas.
Yeah.
But there's that scene where they catch the guy cheating. They take a hammer to his hand.
Yeah.
They catch his partner, and he's like, you can keep the money and get the hammer on your hand, or you can give the money back and get out of here and never come back. And he's like, I'll give you the money back. But just this idea of like, Terry says it many times throughout the movie, like, I hope the police don't catch you because I want to take care of you myself.
Yeah.
Now, if someone were to find out, the Gaming Commission or whatever, that there was some casino justice happening, I mean, like beating up Danny, like, what are we looking at there? I mean, how... Obviously, Bruiser is a plant, but if he wasn't a plant, if George Clooney was getting pummeled in there for being on those premises, how much trouble is Bruiser in? How much trouble is Terry in?
Terry, yeah. I think the best analogy, taking it out of the Vegas element for a minute, is like a loss prevention officer at Target. I'm going to make this as boring as possible. Sure. Because we get people that call our office, getting caught stealing stuff at Target or Kohl's or something along those lines, right? They have cameras everywhere. They're watching everywhere, and they know how to find people that are acting suspicious and are looking around for cameras and all those things. They do have the right to detain a person for stealing, and they have a right to hold them there until the police arrive. different companies have different policies about how aggressive those loss prevention officers can be. We hear stories sometimes of somebody trying to run out of the store and an over-aggressive loss prevention officer tackling them on the way out the door. They're opening themselves up for liability, but they're not going to be prosecuted for trying to stop somebody from running out the door when they're stealing. Taking all that now and layering it onto this Vegas, sort of a thing. Let's say that they caught Danny, red-handed, just palming, $1,000 worth of chips off a table.
Sure.
Let's just assume for a second that that's what he did. And they take him to the back. And again, if we assume that Bruiser is the loss prevention officer for Target,
okay,
they're allowed to bring him back. They're allowed to hold him until the police come. They're sure as hell not allowed to beat the heck out of him, right, or any of those sorts of things. But I think really the challenge comes in is how the heck are you going to prove something like that? Because, it'd be Danny's word against Bruiser's word.
That feels easy to me to prove. No? You see footage, there's cameras everywhere.
Right.
There's footage of Danny before. If he walks out head to toe covered in bruises,
yeah,
wouldn't you?
You could, but it then still ends up being his word against Bruiser's word, and them trying to argue what happened when the cameras were off. I mean, just the fact that they go to a place that there are no cameras. I mean, Danny calls him on it, right? And he's looking around no cameras in this room, huh?
Which is,
he knows.
Great exposition, because him and Bruiser already know what's happening. That's
right.
for us.
Right, yeah. right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about, we just said there's cameras everywhere. Let's talk about the cameras. Let's talk about a lot of this, because there is a lot of stuff in this where I don't know if it's like hacking or whatnot. We already talked about getting into their surveillance.
Right.
But the other big thing that I'm just like, oh, that's got to be a real bad thing. Terry at some point realizes he's being robbed.
Right.
This was actually, if you've never seen the movie, the very first time when Rusty's like, who is this? The guy who's robbing you right now. You're like, whoa.
What?
Yeah. Terry Benedict tells his assistant, he's like, make the call, meaning 911. Right. What we don't realize until later is that he's actually calling Livingston.
Right. Because they've hacked into his phone system to intercept the 911 call.
How illegal is that?
That's super illegal. Yes, it's just as illegal as you think it is. Yeah, that's really bad.
What even is that? What is that?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's aspects of it that's interfering with police services. There's aspects of it that is eavesdropping and pretending to be a police officer and all of those things. So it's all of those things. It's hard to say that Livingston tapping into 911 is the biggest problem. I don't even know if it falls into the top 20 of the bad conduct here.
We don't even know, by the way, if somehow the assistant's name is Walsh.
Right.
We don't know if it's anyone on the casino that called 911 right then would go to Livingston, or if he somehow just has Walsh's phone.
I mean, imagine if like grandma was having a heart attack on the floor after right.
I'm just saying, if somehow I was able to figure out a way to hack people's phones so that anytime they made an outgoing call, I could intercept it, and they called 911 and I pretended to be 911, I assume that's way worse than if someone called grandma and I pretended to be grandma on the phone.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's worse. I mean, because of impersonating a police officer, because of interfering with emergency services and interfering with law enforcement.
The other thing that they interfere with in terms of, there's a lot of impersonating, because you have to in a heist movie.
Right, of course.
I was so tickled the very first time I saw this movie that they are the SWAT team, and that was how they were getting out of there.
Yeah.
Because I was like, first I was a little disappointed when I was like, oh, they're only going to take half the money. That was the scheme. And then we find out, no, they're taking everything.
They're taking all of it. Yeah.
Is impersonating... Are there levels where impersonating a police, a highway patrolman is not as bad as impersonating a SWAT team member, or is it all under the same?
It's all under the same. If it's law enforcement, it's law enforcement. So even though some of my friends in law enforcement would argue that there are different levels of law enforcement, there aren't for that purpose. One of the things that really struck me, and that my wife and I were talking about a bunch. Wifey's a lawyer, and she's way smarter than me. She and I were talking about, okay, the SWAT team actually just walked out with the money.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't run out. They didn't have a firefight to get out. They just walked out with suitcases. So I mean, it's theft by false pretenses, not even, all of the other things. I mean, there's so many complicated layers at that point of it, at the very, very end. But the fact that they're just, we're just going to walk out the front door.
But I mean, that's like, again, like that amazing storytelling, because at the beginning of the movie, that's exactly what they told you they were going to do.
Yeah.
We're just supposed to walk out of there with 160 million and not get stopped. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. That's exactly what they did. And that's what, like, when that moment happens, again, if you've never seen it before and he flips up the visor, you're just like, my favorite part the first time I saw it was like, wait a minute. You expect me to believe that Saul went down, and then they show you Saul very slowly going down the thing. Like, oh, he did. Okay, I believe. I buy it now.
He had trouble. Yeah. It wasn't easy for him.
The great thing about this movie is that for the most part, these are criminals that you don't feel bad rooting for. No. Like, they're not bad people. Like, you kind of like them. The only thing they do that I'm just like, I know there was no way around it, but I wish you hadn't, is they do knock out and tie up those two guards.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I didn't feel bad for them at all. The guards getting zip tied and on the floor in the hallway. I'm like, oh, they work for Terry Benedict. They're bad. Whatever.
Yeah, but I've worked for Coles before, and I don't want to be zip tied.
It's funny that was the line for you, not the EMP that knocked out power to the entire city of Las Vegas.
Let's talk about the pinch.
The pinch,
which is not a real thing. Couldn't really happen, but let's assume for the sake of, because it's
there are EMPs.
Yeah, but not like that.
Not like that.
Not like that.
No.
But again, of all the things you have to suspend your disbelief, I'll go along with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Knocking out power to, well, let's just start. If I do a crime, okay, let's say I'm going to rob a 7-Eleven.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a couple scenarios and you tell me what's worse.
Yes.
I walk in with my finger in my pocket and say I have a gun. Give me what's in the register. That's scenario A.
Okay.
Scenario B is I walk in with a real gun and say, give me what's in the register. Mm-hmm. Scenario C, I cut the power to the 7-Eleven. It's pitch black. I have night goggles on. I go in, I take all the money when no one can see. I turn the power back on, and everyone's like, what happened to the money? Mm-hmm. Essentially, what they did was some version of C, right? Or is it just no matter what, that's just theft? Or were there different layers between all those scenarios?
Definitely different layers. Okay. And the worst of it is bringing the gun.
Okay.
That's the worst.
So they never brought weapons to anything that they did. I mean, maybe you could argue the gas that knocked out the guards was a weapon, but it's not like a firearm.
And even the stage for the cameras seem to be blanks. I mean, we do have a scene where Rusty is shooting a gun in the air, but
that's right.
But it doesn't seem like it's even real. I mean, they don't really address that, but it doesn't seem like there's bullets ricocheting all over the place or anything.
No, and I tend to think that it's blanks because in that tight space, it would probably be too dangerous to shoot. And why would they?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I mean, this is an intelligent crime. This isn't a violent crime, and so they're doing everything they can to try to do it with.
That's interesting. Does the law care more or have any distinction between a violent crime and an intelligent crime?
Yeah. I mean, violence is always worse, and it's always punished worse. And it's the reason why when a lot of the big white collar cases don't get the same level of attention that somebody who, robs a 7-Eleven at gunpoint. That's going to get a lot of attention because there's danger. There's potentially a loss of human life. Someone, and really, there's a lot of discussion about how, corporations can steal money from people, or, the CEO of a corporation can defraud shareholders, or, a lot of the white collar stuff doesn't get that kind of attention. Well, it should get more attention, not saying otherwise, but thankfully we're not dealing with bullets in people, and bullets in people is always going to be worse than just a paper trail of taking money.
So going back to the pinch for a second, they needed it to knock out power so they could get down the
shaft. Yeah.
The shaft.
Yeah.
They knew it was going to happen, but the unintentional kind of consequence of doing the pinch is it doesn't knock out just the building you're in. It knocked out seemingly all of Vegas for 30 seconds or however long it was.
It was unclear to me whether they intended to do that or not, because after the implosion of Rubin's hotel, Basher comes back up and says, "Oh, they messed everything up." And there is a line there where they talk about, can you take out the whole city? Don't really know why they needed to take out.
He basically says
city.
Like it'd be like Hiroshima without the bomb.
Yeah,
yeah. Which to me makes me think like they knew this was going to have a big radius, but it didn't matter.
Right.
Well,
the bigger the radius, the better for them at that point.
But at that point, now you're looking at, maybe there were, hopefully there wasn't, but like a hospital that went down for,
exactly. Yeah. Well, the hospital that went down, the other scenario I was thinking about was the fight. I mean, because the boxing match that was going on at that time, it's unclear to me why all of a sudden everybody got in the ring and started hitting on each other. But I mean,
it just seems like
the lights went on and they were like, "Rah!" and they started fighting in the middle of the ring.
I have to assume that at least in the movie, those are real boxers, by the way.
Yeah.
I have to assume in the movie that there was an actual disdain between them, which does happen a lot of times, and that at that point one of them loses control and is just like, I'm gonna go after you, and then it started a frenzy.
Yeah, that works. The one thing that they never really talked about in their plan was the absolute chaos that would cause, and the benefit to them of the absolute chaos.
I'm going to assume they knew.
Yeah, but it seemed like generally the power outage was to get down the elevator shaft,
right?
And it seemed like the mass chaos in the boxing arena, the casino with everybody grabbing chips off the tables. I mean, we got that awesome sequence early in the film about the three people who almost robbed the casino. But man, I mean, you killed power to all of Vegas. I got to believe there were people that walked out with chips.
Sure. That might have just been, again, you frazzle Terry.
Yeah.
And if you frazzle him, he's not paying attention to, it's not until it's too late that he realizes that the floor on the vault is not the right floor.
Right.
Which was a great little reveal,
Yeah. No, that was awesome. And brilliant that, as far as Terry was concerned, Danny was stuck in the room with what's his face, Bruiser or whatever, like the whole time. And I mean, what a perfect alibi.
So let's with the pinch, with blowing up, they have to blow up the vault door. Mm-hmm. Is there ever a point where you're watching this where it could potentially go from theft to terrorism? Because now I would think maybe with knocking the power to the city out, we've now hit a point where it's not so internalized anymore,
right. Yeah. And
even blowing up the van at the airport,
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of explosions. I mean, Basher definitely does a lot of explosions. I was actually more bothered by him blowing up the police car to escape after the other heist than I was about the van or the the vault or any of those sorts of things. So it's like, dude, just some random patrol guy and his squad car got blown up. But
again, I'm sure no one was hurt because
I'm sure.
I'm
sure they were super careful.
Because our guys are great, right?
Yeah, of course. We're rooting for them.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to get to the level of terrorism with anything that we see here because it's not designed to cause that level of fear, right? It's designed to cause, arguably the pinch is designed to cause chaos.
Sure. But on paper, right? Because no one but us and the crew knows that Rusty on the phone saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to blow your vault up and I'm going to blow this van up. We know that that's a red herring.
Right.
But no one else does. And they do. There is some sort of explosion in the vault.
No. And I mean, they blow both of them.
Right.
But thankfully, it's not something where they end up blowing it and causing a big enough of an explosion to destroy everything,
No, but that's still, I would assume, even just saying to Benedict on the phone, now if you do anything like this, we blow the money in the vault, we blow everything in that van, right?
Yeah. I mean, blowing the money in the vault, at the end of the day, I got the sense that was less of a threat against human life and more I'm going to burn your money up.
Right.
So I think that's what we're looking at more than anything.
Without getting into the sequels, let's just look at just Ocean's 11 on its own. They've walked out of there with $160 million, right?
Yeah.
I have to assume that money laundering charges are in their future. Right?
Well, yeah, I mean, because they're probably not going to report that to the IRS.
But I mean, like, how would they move that? I mean,
it's a great question. And I mean, and that's why, like, Terry at the end, is saying, I sure hope you don't get caught, buying $100,000 car in cash or, because I want to catch you and whatever. They're just going to have to be extra careful. And yeah, that money's going to have to be laundered and cleaned in some way.
Laundering meaning like
faking where that money came from. That's what money laundering is.
Got it.
It's faking the source of the money. So, if all of a sudden, I had $10,000 in my pocket and I didn't say, oh, it came from that client that paid me in cash, and it just kind of somehow makes it into, the cash flow of a business or something along those lines, and then that's where the problem comes in.
So if they started kind of a business and it's like, oh, we generated all this from the business,
right?
That would be,
I mean, car wash, laundromats, those are great cash businesses. I mean, not that I'm encouraging anyone.
I'm pretty sure when I was in my early 30s, there was this amazing Chinese food restaurant. Never saw a single person in there every single time that I went to pick up food. Like literally one patron, and that was it. And I'm always just like, I'm pretty sure this place is a front for something else, but I'm just gonna pick up my order and get out of here.
Right.
It was really good food.
As long as it was really good food, that's what's most important.
Yeah. I'm just speculating.
No harm, no foul.
All right, let's talk a little bit about, I'm not going to make you do a speed round for all 11 people, but I do want to ask if you're, put back on your prosecutor hat for a minute. Ocean's 11 gets caught. You and us as a public, I guess, finds out about this entire plan, right? I assume Danny and Rusty are probably top of your list.
Yeah, no question.
Okay.
They are. And I've seen prosecutors who have said that, everyone should be equally liable, on co-defendant cases.
Right.
So I've seen cases where, everybody gets the same punishment because they were all good for it. They all came in. Most of the time, the judges that I see on multiple co-defendant cases are going to be looking at levels of involvement. The yin. Try to think of who arguably might have the lower level of involvement.
But I mean, he's literally in the vault.
He's in the vault, but also he's in the vault. He does a backflip, and and there we go. I mean, they all have some level of culpability. But I'm just saying, Yin's not the mastermind behind all this.
To me, I would think Danny and Rusty. Danny won, Rusty 1.5.
Yeah,
and
if
then
that.
Right under them, I would actually say Ruben.
I would say that too.
Yeah.
Because not only was he the brains behind it and gave so much intel, but he funded it.
Yes.
So then he's there. From there, you kind of almost have to go with Linus because he played, even though he was the kid, he played such a significant role going in and pretending to be the gaming commission agent and
he's in the vault. He's one of the three in the vault.
Exactly. Yeah.
We've talked about this before, but just to reiterate, because the circumstances are so huge, Tess pretty much knows everything. Does she have any obligation? Like, would you consider Tess a part of this? Because not that she was a part of it in terms of what she did, but I'm just like, she knows the whole story, by the end.
By the end, but after the end, I mean, she's not getting it when the SWAT guys are going out, So, I mean...
No, but she does watch on the monitor.
But she's also so pretty.
True.
Yes.
This was like peak.
This is
Julia
peak Julia Roberts. This is like, Pretty Woman, Ocean's 11, that's pretty much my favorite. No, but I mean, but let's talk about what she knows. She knows Danny is a thief, right? Mm-hmm. She doesn't even see Rusty until later. Right. So she knows that Danny is up to something. Danny, in all of his conversations with her, is just saying, I'm going to win you back. I'm going to show you why you're with the wrong guy. Mm-hmm. She knows he's up to no good. Then there's, a robbery happening. She knows he's probably involved, but it's all suspicion because she knows his character. She doesn't really learn the details of it really until she sees Channel 88 up in the hotel room where she sees Terry saying, I'll give you Tess if you give me all the money back.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some of our fan questions here. If the money was returned later, would that reduce any sort of sentence? I mean, the money is returned in Ocean's 12.
Yeah, I mean,
they're never caught by anyone but Terry.
Yeah. I mean, one of the elements of theft is an intent to permanently deprive. Mm-hmm. If I borrow your jacket and my intention is to give it back to you next week, arguably I've borrowed your jacket without permission for a week, but I'm not intending to permanently deprive it. I'm intending to, wear your jacket for
I mean, then
a
couldn't
week.
Every thief in the world be like, I intended to pay this back?
As it turns out, a lot of thieves say that. I mean, I was going to give the car back eventually. It's going to run out of gas, and I would eventually give it back. Yes, it would minimize it. The other aspect of all of this is, and I'm going to give two examples. One is target loss prevention officer, and the other one is a higher end embezzlement. For the target loss prevention officer, they almost always get the property back. So it has nothing to do with whether they get the property back or not. It's the, having the property in their shopping cart or in their purse or in the bag. Sometimes they'll wait until they actually cross the threshold and bring them back in, those sorts of things. But they almost always recover that property. It's really rare for them not to, and it doesn't make a difference. In a bigger case, I've handled multi-million-dollar embezzlement cases as a defense attorney, and on those cases, the judge, the prosecuting attorney, they're all going to want to know, is there a way to give the money back? If the money was what, let's say it's $10,000 and they hid it in a bank account or something along those lines, and they come back in and say, okay, here's the $10,000 back. It's not going to make the charge go away, but I'm going to get a much better deal for the person that gives the money back than the person who says, oh yeah, I spent it on, strippers and drugs.
Well, okay, strippers and drugs you can't sell, but if I spent it on a car,
right,
I can sell the car and get that back, right?
Well, and I had a case where the person had bought lots and lots of toys with money that they had embezzled, and that was part of what we worked out.
I asked you not to talk about that on the air.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. By toys, I mean dirt bikes and boats and things along those lines. They will seize that property.
Yeah.
They will forcibly try to get it back. One of the cases that I worked on that I'm thinking of right now, we voluntarily gave up the art that was purchased, the jewelry that was purchased, the boats that were purchased, all of the different things like that, so that we could try to make it right, and it didn't eliminate the charge. It didn't eliminate the punishment, but it definitely made the punishment a lot lower than it would be if the person was just out the millions of dollars.
This question, I mean, it's one of those ones where it's like, yes, but can you extrapolate a little bit?
Okay.
Does Danny violating parole during all of this make things worse?
Yeah.
So what happens if you're all the heist aside?
Right.
Danny gets out of jail, parole. He just wants to go to Vegas just to have fun for the weekend, but that's a violation of his parole. What happens?
He goes back into custody for a month.
Okay.
Yeah, they actually do a pretty good job and a pretty accurate job in that first very brief phone call that Danny has from a payphone to his parole officer at the very beginning of the movie. Right. And he still is nearby. It seems like he's in Atlantic City at that point, so he hasn't gone all the way across the country yet. But then the very next scene is him in Los Angeles. And the questions that his parole officer asks, are you staying out of trouble? Are you drinking? Are you leaving town? Those are the things that the parole officer is designed to check in on. Now, these days, because technology is a little different, you'd never have somebody checking in with their parole officer with a payphone.
I was going to say,
payphones don't exist anymore almost ever.
Isn't there a way to track, There
is a way to track, and there are a lot of people that are on release that have GPS trackers.
I was going to say, can you even get on a plane if you're on parole?
You can get on a plane. Yeah, you can. You can. There's nothing.
Nothing would be flagged?
If you had a warrant out for your arrest, then yes, you'd be flagged.
But if you were just on parole?
No. There are people that fly all the time. There are countries that won't allow people to go in. I have clients that are just on DUI probation, like low-level first-time DUI probation. They can't get into Canada.
Yeah. My favorite thing, wrestling. Sometimes there's problems when there's a big show in Canada because a couple of main eventers have been nailed.
A couple, lots of them,
have been nailed for DUIs in the past. It was a bit I remember for I think it was one of the Usos, who's one of their main eventers. They had to work out a deal with the Canadian government to let him in for that show, and then he had to get out.
I mean, I've had businessmen who needed to go for a business meeting that were stopped at the border, denied entry because they were on DUI probation. So going back to your original question about parole and the limitations of that, your parole officer can even approve a vacation if you're in good graces with your parole officer and you get permission. That absolutely can happen. If Danny had gone to his parole officer and said, hey, I really need to see my friend Ruben. He's sick. He's in Vegas, and I need to visit him. If Danny had been on really good grounds with his parole officer, he probably could have gotten permission to do that. Now, obviously, he's not going to get permission for everything else that happens in the movie, but just leaving town is enough. One of the interesting things that I saw at the very end, too, is that sometimes I like watching these scenes with subtitles because it gives you some real clues into what at least the movie thinks is going on.
Sure.
And so he gets into the police car at the end of the movie. They call local Las Vegas PD to take him into custody because he's violated his parole. And so they're like, parole officer says, get in the car. That wasn't a parole officer. The parole officer didn't fly out to Vegas.
He's not there,
The parole officer may have issued a warrant for his arrest, said, go pick this guy up.
Yeah.
And local Las Vegas PD would have put him in the car. Then they would have flown him out and put him back into custody. So,
now this would never happen ever.
Okay.
Ever.
Okay.
But I will read this. Could Rusty flip on Danny for a plea deal?
Yeah. But I think that Rusty is so culpable, it would be really hard for them to get permission to let Rusty go.
I would assume it'd probably be like Turk and Virgil get a deal.
Yeah. I would see. I would see. Assuming that Turk could just not be annoying for 5 seconds. I mean, can you imagine like them in a room together trying to convince a prosecutor to give them a deal?
Would you take any or either of them as a client just because they're so annoying?
They're so annoying. No.
The scene where Matt Damon is just losing his mind at how annoying they are is maybe my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah.
I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. You know?
It's pretty great. But I think the only way that you would get into like a super high end, flipping, getting a deal for immunity on one of the highest level players would be if it was to get back the $160 million and there was enough pressure and enough interest in the prosecuting agency to try to get back the $160 million.
Which we find out in Ocean's 12 is not possible because none of them have enough money left to do. That's the whole basis of the next one. Okay. We haven't talked about this very much, but Saul Lyman Zerga fakes his death, which is great because as the audience, we're not sure if that's fake or not.
Yeah.
But
I don't know how he got it so that he was like sweating the whole time. I mean, he was so nervous and sweaty the whole time.
Well, I have to assume maybe that he chose a fabric for his suit that made him very sweaty.
Maybe. Or maybe instead of him eating antacids, he was eating chili peppers.
Oh.
Okay. Oh,
twist.
Yeah. Twist.
But let's take the question at face value.
Okay.
Is pretending to be dead a crime?
No.
Then why do people get in trouble for faking their death?
Who do you know that's gotten in trouble for faking their death?
Well, it's.
I mean, generally
it's like a movie thing, right?
Right,
where it's like if you fake your death, like they find out.
So where they find out, it's the worst thing ever.
Right.
But we talked about this a little bit in Batman Begins, right? Because there's an argument that Bruce Wayne fakes his death. Because he leaves and he's declared dead. And
yes, but that's more of just like, I'm leaving. If you want to assume I'm dead, that's your problem.
Right.
This is different. This
is different. Yeah. So let's assume, again, we're going to have to switch it up a little bit because there's nothing about him pretending to be dead to get out of the vault that necessarily is an issue, right?
Okay.
So if let's say for a second that he was pretending to die and real emergency personnel had showed up and real law enforcement had showed up, then at that point there might be an argument there that he is delaying or obstructing with law enforcement or emergency personnel or something along those lines, using those resources when they really didn't need to be there. I mean, that ambulance that showed up could have gone to the other side of town to something that was happening, with a real emergency. So those sorts of things you could argue, but I guess it depends kind of like at what point are we going to say you really do get in trouble? I mean, there's not,
right.
It makes for great movie stuff. But I mean, if I wanted to fake my own death, how am I going to fake my own death?
I mean,
these days.
Let me ask you this then. Is the crime or the problem, I'm not even going to say crime, is the problem more The act of faking your death isn't so much the problem. The problem would be the fake identity you'd have to assume to live somewhere else.
Fake identity you'd have to assume. Arguably, there's unlawful passing of your belongings on to heirs, right? And that's something else that happens when someone dies. Getting out of obligations or debts or something. So, I mean, there's definitely ancillary things that are an issue. But, at the end of the day, they would have figured out that he wasn't dead. I mean, if they had really had an actual emergency personnel there, unless he took some medicine that stopped his heart. I mean, that's a movie trope, I don't know. I just don't see, I've never heard of that happening in real life.
Okay.
So show me where we're wrong. That one time in that one place where somebody actually faked his death.
Elvis? Tupac?
Yes. All those things.
So, yeah, look, we're not going to do a speed round because all 11 would take forever. But is there any one of them, you said you wouldn't take Turk and Virgil.
Right.
Because they're just too annoying. Are there any of them that you see you'd be like, actually, I think I might be able to help them?
Yeah, I think Frank.
Yeah.
I honestly think that Frank has one of the best arguments because he's just the observer, the spy. He ends up going down the elevator shaft and throwing on a SWAT suit because we believe that all of them, went down and put on SWAT gear except for Danny. But although, did they have? Anyway, doesn't matter. We assume that all of them went down the shaft and put on SWAT gear. So maybe there's that aspect of his involvement, but so much of Frank's involvement is just being the watcher. He's the spotter. He's the looker, and that's really about it.
Yeah, he probably does well, no, you're right. It's got to be Frank as the least amount of trouble because even Livingston, like we said, intercepts the 911 calls.
Yeah. And then there's the eavesdropping. There's the tapping into the security cameras.
With Livingston tampering with the security cameras because he's the one that's patching in a video of something that's not there.
Yeah, and that is some level of trespassing and interference. It's not as big of a deal as you might think it is, but it's trespassing. And, it would be different if he was doing that to government run materials or systems or things along those lines. It's corporate espionage is what it is, and it's unlawful eavesdropping. So that's low. I still think that Frank is the guy that's got the least amount of culpability out of the bunch.
I mean, again, I hate to go into these things rooting for the bad guys, but
we do. And that's what makes it such a good film. And I mean, and it doesn't hurt that they cast the best people in Hollywood at the time. I mean, even now it's amazing. At the time, they were all at the peak of their careers. I mean, the fact that Matt Damon is like third fiddle on this tells
fourth or fifth.
Right. I mean, it tells you something about the level of star power that this movie had.
And then, of course, we're going to keep it. By 12 and 13, it starts to become of like, what celebrity is going to, Bruce Willis makes a cameo in 12. Catherine Zeta-Jones joins the cast.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Then Ellen Barkin and Al Pacino.
Yeah.
It just becomes like this. If you're cool in Hollywood, you find your way into these movies.
Yeah.
I loved Ocean's 8.
Me too.
We find out in Ocean's 8 that Danny Ocean, that's, Sandra Bullock is his sister, and that he's dead. But they've also just announced they're doing another Ocean's movie with the original cast or the surviving original cast.
That's awesome.
So I think we're going to find out maybe a better answer to the question of what happens if you fake your death, right? I am so glad that we did this because I love this movie so much.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do 12 and 13 down the road. But in the meantime, there's so many more episodes of Doug Defense that you can check out right here on the YouTube channel. Or if you want to take us inside of your ears, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere that you get your podcasts. Doug, welcome back. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Or if you're watching this in the summer, happy summer solstice.
Whichever it might be.
And we will see you guys right back here next week.
$95-pound Chinese man with $160 million behind this door.
Let's get him out.
Yeah.